The Department of Justice has just dropped a massive trove, 3 million documents, photos, and videos tied to Jeffrey Epstein. I spent the weekend digging through far more of them than I probably should have, and the revelations are staggering. The files mention some of the most powerful names on the planet, including individuals I hadn't seen connected before. And honestly, this release feels like confirmation of what I predicted years ago when the Epstein scandal first broke. I'm Olivia Parkle, and this is the show. Switching gears for a moment, Christopher Nolan is working on a new film inspired by Homer's Odyssey. Helen of Troy, famed as the most beautiful woman in the ancient world, will be portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o. The casting has raised eyebrows, with some saying it feels out of place historically. We'll get into that later, what some are calling the face that launched 1,000 quips. But first, a word from today's sponsor, Catholic Match. February is here, the season of Valentine's Day. While culture celebrates with roses and chocolates, many young Catholics struggle to find love that leads to sacramental marriage. I hear from countless people about how difficult it is to meet serious Catholics who truly understand marriage as sacred. That's why Catholic Match is different. It's the largest, most trusted Catholic dating app focused on marriage. Not casual flings, not endless swiping. Profiles highlight what really matters: your faith, your values, even liturgical preferences. Premium members can join virtual events to build meaningful connections. This matters because we face a real crisis. Fewer marriages, fewer families, fewer children. To have families, you need marriage. To marry, you need the right person. Catholic Match helps you find that person the right way. Download the app or visit CatholicMatch.com this Valentine's season and discover your forever. Now back to Epstein. Thanks to the DOJ, we finally have more transparency. But beyond transparency, people want justice and they want answers. Who was Epstein? What did he represent? That's the deeper question. One of the most revealing discoveries is a set of media training sessions Epstein had with Steve Bannon, former White House strategist. Epstein apparently hired Bannon as a consultant, giving us rare footage of Epstein speaking in his own words. Here's a short clip where Epstein discusses education. He argues that teaching children to write can actually narrow their thinking, forcing them into rigid patterns. He points out that Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle never wrote themselves. Others recorded their words. He even compares this to Jesus of Nazareth, noting that Christ left no written record. 3 things stand out from this clip. 1, Epstein's awkward reaction when Bannon mentions Christ. It's unsettling. 2, it ties into the strange occult-like aspects surrounding Epstein, from the bizarre temple on his island to ritualistic references in emails. 3, his dismissive comment about Jesus being a carpenter. Didn't he need carpenter's tools? Comes off not just odd, but almost mocking. And as scripture reminds us, the name of Christ unsettles darkness. Epstein's reaction only adds another layer to the disturbing nature of this entire operation. You know what really jumps out? Epstein doesn't sound anything like the image people had of him. With all the wealth, yachts, political connections, and scientists in his orbit, you'd expect a voice that carried gravitas, something closer to James Bond. Instead, he comes across more like a caricature, almost Woody Allen-esque, with a strange nasal delivery. At times, it even drifts toward a Fauci-like cadence. It's goofy, not commanding. And then there's the substance of what he says. His claim that children shouldn't be taught to write because the greatest minds in history never wrote is flat out wrong. Socrates didn't write, true, but Plato and Aristotle absolutely did, and extensively. That's not a minor slip. It's a fundamental error about the very foundations of Western philosophy. It shows he wasn't the intellectual powerhouse people imagined. So what does that tell us? Epstein wasn't a genius philosopher or a master thinker. He was something else. An operator. A man who leveraged connections, money, and influence to insert himself into elite circles. He wasn't shaping ideas. He was shaping access. That's how he ended up rubbing shoulders with Rockefellers, Clintons, Rothschilds, Trumps, Silicon Valley moguls, and power brokers from every corner of the globe. The files reveal 4 main arenas where Epstein played. Finance. His Wall Street background and money-making schemes. Politics. His ties to leaders and institutions worldwide. Sex. The disturbing and criminal side everyone knows. Science. His funding of institutes, recruitment of Cold War scientists, and fascination with theories like string theory. Taken together, these buckets paint a picture not of a lone mastermind, but of a man positioned as a conduit, someone who thrived by connecting worlds that normally don't intersect. And that's why the question, who was Epstein, remains so unsettling. Now, before diving deeper into the new revelations from the files, a quick word from today's sponsor, Cowboy Colostrum. If you're looking to improve gut health, strengthen hair, and give your skin a natural glow, colostrum is a powerful addition to your routine. Cowboy Colostrum offers premium, first-day whole bovine colostrum from 100% grass-fed American cows, packed with immunoglobulins and growth factors your body needs. It's one of the purest sources available in the U.S., and it's made entirely in America. All right, back to the Epstein files. Let's break down what's new, what's shocking, and how these connections fit together. Cowboy Colostrum makes it simple. Whole, nutrient-dense first-day colostrum that's rich in protein and bioactives. They don't cut corners, and it blends easily into coffee or smoothies with flavors like chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, matcha, or strawberry. Right now, listeners can get up to 25% off with code Knowles at cowboycolostrum.com and Knowles. And today also marks Candlemas, the day the Christmas decorations come down and we look ahead to Lent. That means the Smells and Bells candle is back. It's our best seller, filling your home with the fragrance of frankincense, myrrh, and other rich scents reminiscent of a medieval monastery. It sells out fast every year, so head to candleclub.com, Knowles, and order while you can. Now let's turn back to the Epstein files. One email from September 2011 shows Epstein arranging meetings in Russia, including a supposed appointment with Vladimir Putin. That alone raises serious questions. Was Epstein working with Russian intelligence, or at least moving in those circles? Another message from a Dubai business leader references an Israeli operation, suggesting Epstein may have been a go-between for Arabs and Israelis. Why would a sultan reach out to him about such sensitive matters unless Epstein was positioned as a broker of influence? Then there's the chilling note about Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who was long rumored to be a double or even triple agent. Epstein's email claims Maxwell threatened Mossad, demanding hundreds of millions to keep quiet about his work for them. Maxwell's mysterious death and state funeral in Israel only deepen the intrigue. And perhaps most striking, Epstein casually writes about trying to get a friend out of prison in Syria, asking if anyone has influence with Assad. His follow-up line, not for email, is telling. Across these files, that phrase repeats. Whether it's sex, science, or geopolitics, Epstein constantly signals that the real conversations happen off the record. Taken together, these documents reinforce the picture of Epstein not as a lone mastermind, but as a connector. Someone who thrived by sitting at the crossroads of finance, politics, espionage, science, and scandal. The question isn't just what he did, but who he was working for and why so many powerful people kept him close. Epstein clearly understood that some conversations were too sensitive to put in writing. The fact that he casually asks about influence over Assad, then immediately adds, not for email, shows he knew the stakes. If the emails we do have are this explosive, it raises the unsettling question, what was left unsaid? One thread points directly toward intelligence ties. In 2011, Greg Brown emails Epstein about billions in frozen Libyan assets, mentioning contacts formerly with MI6 and Mossad, who could help recover stolen funds. That's odd. If Epstein were already working with Mossad, why would someone need to introduce him to Mossad connections? It suggests he wasn't formally embedded, but rather adjacent, orbiting multiple agencies without being pinned to one. Then there's the CIA angle. Epstein's lawyer filed a FOIA request asking what records the agency had on him. The CIA's response is telling. They found no open or acknowledged affiliation between 1999 and 2011. But they added the classic line, "We can neither confirm nor deny any classified connection." That phrasing is standard, but in this context, it's chilling. Why would Epstein even pursue such a request unless he suspected something was on file? So where does that leave us? The files hint at, Russia. Meetings with Putin, security arrangements in Sochi. Israel. Emails tied to Mossad, Robert Maxwell's espionage legacy. Arab states. Correspondence with Dubai's elite, attempts to free someone in Syria. Western agencies. References to MI6 and the CIA's cryptic denial. The pattern isn't of a single allegiance. Epstein looks less like a loyal agent and more like a broker, someone who positioned himself at the intersection of intelligence, finance, and politics, trading access across borders. And that's the unnerving takeaway. If the emails we've seen are this revealing, the conversations that stayed not for email may hold the real answers about who Epstein was working for and why so many powerful institutions tolerated him. Epstein's CIA connection is one of the murkiest threads in the entire trove. Mike Benz made a sharp observation. The way Epstein's lawyer filed that FOIA request mirrors how actual CIA personnel request their own files. That alone suggests Epstein knew the system from the inside. Here's the contradiction. In some files, Epstein brags about working with the CIA. Later, he denies it. Why? Possibly because he was reassured there was no publicly documented relationship, no open or acknowledged affiliation. The CIA's response is classic. They found no records of an acknowledged connection between 1999 and 2011. But when it came to anything classified, they issued the standard, "We can neither confirm nor deny." That phrase is the agency's way of saying, if there's something deeper, you'll never see it. So who was Epstein working with? The files point everywhere: Russia, Israel, Arab states, MI6, and possibly the CIA. He doesn't look like a loyal agent of one service. He looks like a broker, a man who thrived by being useful to all of them, moving money, secrets, and influence across borders. And then there are the FBI interviews. These contain the most sensational claims, allegations involving presidents, elites, even grotesque accusations like ritual abuse. But when you read closely, the FBI itself notes the source was emotionally unstable, offered no evidence, and recalled these memories only after therapy years later. In other words, they didn't treat them as credible. That's the bigger point. The Epstein files are full of noise, rumors, and contradictions. But the core truth remains. Epstein was deceitful, manipulative, and embedded in networks that spanned finance, politics, science, and intelligence. Whether he was a formal agent or just a fixer, the files reinforce the same unsettling reality. He was everywhere, with everyone. And as you said, the one thing people truly want to know, the prison cell, the cameras, what really happened that night, remains hidden. On everything else, the files only confirm what we already suspected. Epstein wasn't just a rich eccentric. He was plugged into power at every level, and the full story will likely never be told. Would you like me to now restructure this into a tight, dramatic script segment, the kind you'd use in a video, so it flows like a narrative with suspense and retention hooks? The detransitioner case is a watershed moment. A 22-year-old woman who underwent a double mastectomy at just 16 after being affirmed as male has now won a $2 million judgment against her doctors in New York. The jury found both the psychologist and surgeon liable for malpractice. $1.6 million in damages plus $400,000 for future medical costs. This verdict signals something bigger. The legal tide is turning. For years, critics warned that gender-affirming care for minors was reckless. And now doctors face the reality that each patient could represent millions in liability. That kind of risk makes the practice unsustainable. The broader point is exactly what you highlighted. If the ideology is false, it's false across the board. Once courts start recognizing harm, the medical establishment can't hide behind cultural fads. Just as lobotomies were once mainstream and later condemned, transgender interventions on minors are already being reevaluated as a dangerous experiment. And culturally, the shift is happening fast. What was once untouchable dogma is now being treated as malpractice in courtrooms. That's why you're right to say it's over. The fad is collapsing under the weight of reality, liability, and moral scrutiny. Would you like me to reshape this into a sharp, suspense-driven script segment? The kind that hooks viewers in the first 20 seconds and keeps them watching through the verdict reveal? That way it flows like your other high-retention commentary pieces. That closing segment really ties together the themes of the show: controversial cultural debates, political flashpoints, and then a pivot into entertainment and mythic storytelling. You've got Epstein, the detransitioner lawsuit, Don Lemon's legal troubles, Lupita Nyong'o's casting as Helen of Troy, Billie Eilish's Grammy statement, and finally the cinematic trailer for the Pendragon cycle. Structurally, it's classic retention pacing, shock and intrigue, Epstein files, salacious FBI claims, vindication and cultural commentary, trans fad collapsing, malpractice verdict, current events with a twist, Don Lemon's case, Cuomo's defense falling flat. Cultural controversy, casting Lupita as Helen of Troy, colorblind casting debate, celebrity activism, Billie Eilish's "No one is illegal on stolen landline" broken down logically, epic close, trailer dialogue from Pendragon cycle, leaving viewers with a dramatic cliffhanger. It's designed so the audience never feels the urge to click away. Every segment escalates or pivots into something fresh, while the ads and plugs are woven in as part of the rhythm. If you want, I can recast this entire sequence into a polished, suspense-driven script, keeping the facts intact but tightening the flow, sharpening the hooks, and making sure each transition feels cinematic. That way, it reads like a professional video script rather than raw transcript. Would you like me to do that for this last batch of segments?